I was told I shouldn't play again, would never play again. Oh, I had to learn how to walk. I couldn't walk. I was like, I couldn't remember anything. I was unstable on my feet. I had to learn everything.
Why don't new signings get a game? Why have we only got one goalie? Why so few defenders? And is the squad stronger now than when you took over?
Sounded like more than 140 characters, that.
I can remember the last one. And I believe it is stronger. I think my team is stronger than last season.
Playing in the first team and doing well in the first team at Chorley United and being touted around. It came to a head where I says, well, you're either going to sell me or you're going to keep me. He said the two highest bids are from Crystal Palace and Manchester United. And they both put the same bid in, £1.2 million, I think it was at the time. And I had to make a decision of which club I would go to. I thought I'd maybe have a better chance of continuing playing first team football at Crystal Palace. Added to that was the hospitality of Ron Nodes and his wife, which was fantastic. So I opted for Crystal Palace. So Michael Knighton and my father, who was looking after me at the time, said that I had to let Sir Alex Ferguson know of my decision. It was courteous that I let Sir Alex know that I'd chosen Crystal Palace ahead of him, which I did, which I was petrified in doing. But he was brilliant to me and said maybe our paths will cross again. And I ended up a week or two later down at Selhurst Park. I'd come from Carlisle, I'd just got into the first team, I'd done really well. I'd been signed by Crystal Palace Premier League team for 1.2 million, which was a lot in those days. And it was just like a snowball, and I was getting, more and more confident.
Things started to not quite go as well for Palace, and things were unravelling. How aware were you and the players of what was going on behind the scenes at the time?
But I was actually living with Ron Nodes, who never wanted to sell the club. He kept saying, he's offering so much money, I'm finding it hard to turn him down. And, he probably didn't tell me everything, but I knew there was going to be an imminent takeover from Goldberg, and he was going to be throwing money around, and you thought, wow, this is going places. Crystal Palace is going to go through the moon. It was just such a strange time when Attilio took over. We were playing Newcastle United away at St James's, and he'd just been introduced as a new manager. We went down the night before. We're at pre-match meal, or the day before meal, on the evening, and we had some glasses of champagne glasses put on our tables. I think, what's going on here? And then suddenly they were opening bottles of champagne. This is an Italian tradition, we were told, that you toast the new manager. So we were toasting the new manager. Probably they weren't filled in with how English Premier League footballers usually act, but when you have a little bit of a drink, they like to carry on, which a lot of the players did. I'm not discounting myself. We all had quite a few glasses of champagne that evening and carried on drinking that night. And it seemed to do us quite well the next day, because we beat them 2-1. I think I got Young Player of the Year just after signing for them in January, and Mark Goldberg spoke to my agent and says we want to tie him down for a longer contract. This is part of my snowball building, and he says, would he sign a 6-year contract? And we were thinking, oh well, if the money's right, we'll sign a 6-year contract. And yeah. But this was probably Mark Goldberg's downfall. He was throwing money around left, right, and centre, trying to build Crystal Palace maybe too quickly. He had a vision for it, but it was obviously above his means, really. I mean, I loved my time down at Crystal Palace so much, and I loved being there, being located there. But it was out of my hands. I had a phone call one morning from Steve Coppell saying, "You won't be involved today." And I says, "What? Why won't I be involved today?" And he says, "We've accepted a bid from Juventus." And I said, "Right, okay." I knew there was speculation going around me. We've accepted a bid from Juventus, and I went, okay. I didn't know how I felt about it. I would have maybe asked for the number 10 shirt off Zinedine Zidane if I was going to sign for Juventus. Eventually, Jack Walker had bid 4.1 million rather than the 5 million that they'd been asking for, because he was prepared to pay them all up front, which obviously Mark Goldberg needed. Brian Kidd was at Manchester United, and he'd just become the manager at Blackburn Rovers, who I'd got on with quite well, and I spoke to him, and he was maybe one of the reasons why I decided to go to Blackburn. I was on the cusp of a wave, and my snowball was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'd got into the England squad. I was supposed to be playing up front with Michael Owen. Unfortunately for me, I'd ended up catching a bug that my nephew had of gastroenteritis, and I just couldn't get out of bed. I was on an intravenous drip that evening, so unfortunately for me, I couldn't get my England cap then. The night before the team was announced for the World Cup in 2002, Sven-Göran Eriksson was there at Anfield, and we played Liverpool, and he said to Graham Souness, make sure he doesn't get injured because he's in the World Cup squad for tomorrow. Graham Souness told me this, but I ended up doing well, scoring a goal. I think we drew 3-3 at Anfield, and I scored. Didn't get injured, and the team was announced the next day, and I wasn't in it. And to cut a long story short, after finding out Todd Grip had gone to the Manchester United game, and Manchester United Arsenal, and said we maybe need to go a little bit more cautious and go with Martin Keown rather than Matt Jansen, and they chose Martin Keown ahead of me, who never played a minute of football. So that was meant to be. So I thought, well, at least I'll get my chance next season. But unfortunately, that summer, or a week later, I ended up in Rome in a motorcycle accident. I was in a coma for 6 days, and then it was just a rebuilding process. I was told I shouldn't play again, would never play again. I had to learn how to walk. I couldn't walk. I was like, funny, I couldn't remember anything. I was unstable on my feet. Psychologically, I wasn't ready. Physically, I looked fine, but in your head, I liken it to those snowballs that you shake at Christmas time. You shake them, and they all fizz up. And yeah, the dust was still fizzing around in my head. Although I appeared fine, the dust was still fizzing around. It was difficult for Blackburn Rovers, obviously, because I would do okay, and then they'd think, well, he's not got a broken leg, there's nothing wrong with him. If you've got a broken leg, you've got a plaster on. In your brain, you don't know, you can't see it, so if you can't see it, it looks like he's doing okay. But I think psychologically I wasn't right to cope with the pressures and the stresses of professional football. I needed to get my hunger back and my desire and belief back. I got terribly distressed, depressed, frustrated, angry, and that was a battle as well, in terms of not just trying to get back to football, but in terms of my well-being. So I was battling that. So it was a difficult time, and eventually, it wasn't to be that I could get back to the heights that I'd had before the accident. It became so distressful that I had to get away from football. And I thought, well, you know, the grass is greener. I'll stop playing football. you know. I don't want to do it anymore. It hurt me that much. So I came away from football. That'll fix me. That's brilliant. 2 years into it, you start getting itchy feet. You start thinking, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I'm still only relatively young. Out of the blue, I got a phone call from a good friend of mine, Gary Flitcroft, who I'd played with at Blackburn Rovers. He was a captain at Blackburn Rovers, and asked me if I would come as a player coach with him, because he'd just started as a manager in the semi-professional league. And because I had itchy feet and I was hating being just at home doing nothing, I jumped at the chance.
For me, I feel sorry for Kieran because I think he does a good job when he's been asked to come on, and I didn't want to leave him out after Alfreton, but I wanted to bring my captain back in terms of Teague. That was a difficult one for me because I like if you do well, like I said, you keep your shirt. But we lost that game, so I wanted to make at least 1 or 2 changes. I don't think we have too few defenders.
First job in management. Are you enjoying it?
Enjoying it? Yes, I am enjoying it. At times I'm hating it, but at times it's fantastic. Obviously you love winning, but defeats are hard to take.
How are you finding being a manager and not being a player anymore?
It's obviously different. You don't have to keep as fit, which is great. But you know, it's great to pass on experiences that I've had, and I've been doing my coaching badges. I'm now almost finished my A licence, so which you have to do, and I'm enjoying cutting my teeth at Chorley Football Club.
And what are the plans for the future? Where do you see yourself in 5-10 years?
Well, I'm like I am as a player. I wanted to go as far as I could as a player, and I want to go as far as I can as a manager. Wherever that'll take me, time will tell, and results will tell. But I am enjoying it at the moment, and hopefully I can do well as a manager as well as I did as a footballer.
And do you think you could do that as a manager at Crystal Palace one day?
Well, wow, that's a big step. You can never say never in football, and things move fast, and you know, it's an ambition. It's an ambition to go as high as I can in management, and we'll see what happens.